Welcome back, everybody. I am Jay. He's Maddie. This is Yankee and the Brit Sports Talk. And today we're going to talk some Brian Flores, some Tom Brady's retirement, and this news has all been coming so fast. Me and Maddie wanted to hit you with this first, but don't worry, we will get to our reaction of what happened on championship weekend. But the news is flying in so quick, we had to make a decision because real life gets in the way sometimes. So we're going to give you the Brian Flores, Tom Brady information first. And let's just start with Brian Flores class action lawsuit against the NFL for discriminatory hiring practices. I don't know shit about fuck when it comes to this kind of law, but I do know the guy I shit on, Mike Florio, is a lawyer who used to do these type of things. And he said the NFL lost this case the second it was filed.
Mike Florio, this is the one time that this is the one time that Mike Florio is the only guy you should go to about this. Not the only guy. Like, listen to what other people have to say, get different points of view. Fine. Mike Florio's voice in this shit holds credence. It's why Deshaun Watson getting into 40 lawsuits against him was the best thing to ever have in a PFT. Like, honestly, because Florio is the guy that you want to listen to when you're talking about this kind of stuff. And like, I actually don't mind Mike Florio. I really like Chris Sims. I like Pete King's on PFT. Shireen is on there as well. They have a good team on there. I'd listen to them. It's where I get football from. But Mike Florio to this shit is the guy. And what he says to me in these things really does hold credence. And what he said is, by the NFL not taking this seriously, by the NFL not releasing the other emails with what happened with John Gruden, not releasing the other emails that Dan Schneider will have sent and the Washington football team, with them standing immediately by their owner and saying this has no merit straight away, no investigation, 2 hours later, this has no merit. They know it has merit. They know that this happens in the NFL, and the Rooney Rule doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. I don't know how you fix it. It's not how you fix it is by saying, guys, black people can do jobs that white people can do. It's just so deeply ingrained into a society. It's really infuriating. And I just think the way that the NFL has handled this and the other shit that's happened this season is really not going to go for them.
Well, the Rooney Rule came about because Tommy Cochran was going to find somebody to sue the NFL back in the day because they could approve it. Everybody, the NFL quick made some kind of rule, to try to help. And the Rooney Rule was the best way to do it because if you look at that, Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the few franchises you could never argue do any kind of discriminatory hiring practices. But the only way this is ever going to change, I truly believe, is until you get more owners of color, because it's all rich white people. And until that happens, it seems that a lot of people, even if it's subconsciously, hire people that look like themselves, and it becomes a big problem. The fact that Brian Flores had enough balls to stand up and sue the NFL may actually guarantee he never works in the NFL again. And I give him big props for doing it. And after reading, and I know a lot more are going to come out, because what did they say? The initial filing's 50 pages or 500 pages or something.
60,
I don't remember.
60 pages. Yeah. The initial
60
filing.
pages. Okay. So there's a lot in there with a lot more to come. But so John Elway and them show up to an interview disheveled, which I think was a nice way of saying hungover, to give him an interview for a job he really couldn't get. The Giants gave him an interview after they had already made it perfectly clear they were hiring Brian Daboll, and that got slipped by Belichick. They say it was slipped. Darius Butler, who knows Belichick very well, said he would not be surprised if Belichick did not do this on purpose, because Belichick really hates some of the discriminatory practices in the NFL. I don't know how true that is, but that was just from, one of his former players. And then the Dolphins offering him $100K a game to lose games. Like, they want to pay you to throw a game. As a coach, how do you even look yourself in the mirror by intentionally losing a game, and you want another job. And I guess a lot of the fallout is because of this, and he would not come to terms with that Tua was going to be his guy.
Yeah, well, I mean,
the firing came because of that.
Yeah,
I don't want to say the lawsuit.
I think if he lost those games, then the Miami Dolphins might well have got Joe Burrow, and that's got to be frustrating for the owner. But Matt Stafford has proved by getting to the Super Bowl, like, our entire organization does not rely on a quarterback. The Cincinnati Bengals also got Jamar Chase, who is the number one weapon. The Dolphins don't have a guy of Jamar Chase. Like, Jalen Waddle's the closest that they've got, and he's really fucking good as well, but he's not Jamar Chase. I don't want to look at that too much because everybody knows that's fucked up. That's really, really bad. The owner of the Miami Dolphins should lose his team for this. He should lose the ownership of his team. If a player did that in this betting-driven league now, he wouldn't play. He wouldn't see a football field ever again. And he'd probably have some criminal charges or something thrown at him. But because a big, rich, white owner is doing it, then it's going to be slid under the rug. Same with Dan Schneider. Disgraceful. But I don't want it to take too much away from the issue that Brian Flores really is raising with this is the race issue and the discriminatory practices. And I'm worried that people are going to really cleverly do something about the Miami Dolphins and what happened there without having to fix the discriminatory practices, because they're like, look, we listened to him. And coming back to the balls, I have no reason to disagree. I have no reason to question Brian Flores. Like, yes, he's hurt about not getting the Giants job. Yes, he's hurt about the way he found out. He could get the Texans job. He could get the Saints job. They're two franchises that I mean, the Texans are a bit fucked up, but they hired a black coach last season, and and it's the not giving Flores a fair shot, I think, is what's really getting to me, because he's actually done head coaching, whereas Daboll's not been a head coach. So the fact they won't even listen to him when he's such a good head coach, clearly the Dolphins owner has said something to the Giants owner that is saying, don't hire Flores. He's a fucking weapon. You don't want him around you. And they listen to each other, and there's backhand dealings, and it's a fucking disgrace. But congrats to Flores for coming out and being so brave, because you've basically trashed your whole NFL career by doing this. And congrats to you, because it's worth doing.
Well, according to Mike Florio, Flores must have been planning to file this even if he got the Giants job, because he said as long as this was being put together, this was not just thrown together very quickly, that this lawyer has been working on this for a while. So Flores must have reached out for a while. But let's be real. And I know there's more good candidates than what I'm going to name, but I don't want to sit here all day. But if there was not discriminatory practices going on in the NFL, Todd Bowles, Raheem Morris, DeMeco Ryans, I could keep going. These guys would have had coaching jobs over recycled white coaches who have proven time and time again that they're going to be the epitome of mediocrity. I can't even speak today, but they're going to be
mediocrity.
Yes, they're all going to be Jeff Fisher 2.0, and he kept getting jobs over and over. If you want to be 8-8, hire Jeff Fisher. You know what I mean? That used to be the old joke in the NFL. So, like, there's a lot of guys who deserve it, and I hate the fact that so a guy plays in the NFL for 9, 10, 11 years. He wants to get into coaching, and you want this dude to start at the bottom and start fetching coffee. But yet a third-year grad assistant who's been there for 3 years now is above this guy because he's been in the organization longer. But yet you're talking about players who have helped game plan for games, know the insides and out. And I think that if we look at it, it's not all players that get treated that way. Josh McCown has never done anything but coach high school football, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be the Texans' next head coach. But you want a guy like Darius Butler or somebody else to come in and fetch you coffee? That shit doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and the other thing with this is Brian Flores is a perfect candidate for the New York Giants job. It's a job that I wouldn't have wanted if I was Brian Flores, to be perfectly honest. But let's think of who was successful there. They're all in like Coughlin. That he's a difficult guy. Are you telling me that Flores is harder to deal with than Coughlin? Is that what you're
Bill
really telling me?
Parcells.
Bill Parcells. Are you telling me that Brian Flores is harder to deal with than Coughlin? Flores is from Brooklyn, so New York, but like born and raised, first generation immigrant, lived in Brooklyn in Brownsville. Great. Defensive coach. They always hire defense from the Belichick tree. Ben fucking McAdoo got a job there, and Joe Judge got a job there, all from the Belichick tree. Like, he's the perfect candidate. There is one thing that is different. And yes, they may want to pick, like, they've picked somebody from the Belichick tree to go there, but there is one thing that is different to him and the others, and it's his skin color. Like, he took a team that is mediocre at best to 2 winning seasons, the Miami Dolphins. Zach Taylor, until this season, was 25 and 6. No, it was 6 and 25 for the Cincinnati Bengals, and he's now one of the best coaches in the league, considered a success. And Brian Flores has got 2 winning seasons with a terrible owner, as shown by the fact he wanted to tank games for $100,000 a game. A mediocre quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa, who I like more than other people, but still not pushing into the top 15, and just a horrendous history back off his Miami Dolphins team. And it just frustrates me that he's such a perfect candidate. I'm happy that he's not got the New York Giants job as a Cowboys fan. Very, very happy about it. But I'm not happy in the way that he's not got it. It just doesn't sit right. It's just weird.
Don't count out Brian Flores for the Saints job, and it's the only job I think he may have a shot at, because Gail Benson is a lot like Al Davis used to be, and they are still really pissed off about the whole Bountygate thing, the suspending of Sean Payton for a year. There's hard feelings in New Orleans from ownership against the NFL, and they might be the one team willing to go, fuck your old white boys club, come on down. I'm not sure it'll happen, but they're the one team. Also, I think Mark Davis was that type of guy, but he got his guy in Josh McDaniels, so that's not going to happen. But I don't think there's a lot of owners that are going to hire this guy with him suing the NFL right now. And it's sad to say, I think he might have just ruined his coaching career. I sure hope not. But it takes balls to do what he did. And the fact that we know he was going to file this, get a job, or if he got a job or not, proves that this is less vindictive that some people are going to make it out to be. And we are hitting the point now, coming in the next weeks. The NFL lawyers are going to dig up every nasty thing they can say about Brian Flores to make it more about, oh, this dude's a piece of shit, than it is about the practices of their hiring. So everybody, don't buy into the media craziness. It's going to get nasty and dirty before this is over. If I'm the NFL, I literally settle this thing today. I call his lawyer and go, what do we have to do to settle this thing right now?
Create a whole entire new rule. I genuinely think that Brian Flores is the guy. He's not doing this. He's not doing this for the money. He genuinely wants change, as far as I'm concerned. Otherwise, he wouldn't have potentially ruined his coaching career for it. With the NFL, all they had to do with this was open an investigation into it right now. That's all they had to do, and they could have bought themselves some time. They could have bought themselves some time to say, we're not affiliated with these practices. It's the practices of those 3 franchises that you're talking about, and we will look into it. But on ESPN, Flores' attorney, I thought that was a great interview by Flores, his 2 attorneys and the guy interviewing. I thought it was a really good interview. Everybody go watch that if you haven't already. It's on ESPN. He said the NFL investigated deflated balls for longer than they investigated a 60-page account of racist practices in their league and practices of bribery and fraud in a gambling league now. Like fair enough if you did it before Vegas got involved, but people are putting money on these games and they're getting paid. If a player did this shit, then they would have been gone already. But they took longer investigating deflated balls than they did investigating a 60-page thing describing racist practices and things like that. And it's really disheartening from the NFL. It's horrible to see. It makes me question the sport, if I'm being perfectly honest. I'm sure I'll still be very happy to watch the Super Bowl, though.
And for anybody outside of the U.S. that doesn't understand what a class action lawsuit means, it means that it's an open lawsuit that other people who these same practices have happened to can join. So I am waiting to see how many more people join this and how far back they go with it. I'm also very interested but nervous to see how this plays out in the media, because it's definitely gonna. And we really probably have maybe a tenth of the information right now. There's a lot more to come, and I'm sure we will be talking about this all off season.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to highlight is, since the Rooney Rule came in, is there's now less black quarterbacks or ethnic minority quarterbacks in the NFL, coaches, sorry, in the NFL than there was when the Rooney Rule came in. That's ridiculous. And also, Brian Flores is a great coach. He should get a job. If he doesn't get a job, that's a travesty. Well done for standing up. And this is not to say, by the way, I just want to make this very clear. I quite like all of the NFL hirings that we've had so far. There hasn't been an NFL hiring that I thought, that's the old white boys club. If they were hiring those guys over Brian Flores before this came out, then I'm like, okay, fine. It makes sense.
Okay.
But Brian Flores is a better coach and has head coaching experience. That I would hire Brian Flores, but it's not as cut and dry as some of the other things, like hiring Joe Judge, for example.
I am not calling this racist at all, so people do not think this. The one hire that made me scratch my head and go, what the fuck, was the Bears. But that has nothing to do with that they hired a white guy. It's that you hired a defensive coordinator to come in and deal with Justin Fields. But, I mean, that's different. Yeah. But they did have me scratch my head, though. I have to say that. But Manny,
that's them getting scarred by their last head coach. That's a little bit. That's a dysfunctional organization doing dysfunctional shit. I'm gonna not feel too bad about that one.
Who just hired a very good GM, so we'll see if that helps. In Ryan Poles, I think he's going to be a really good GM. But let's move on to a little. I mean, it's sad, but it's a happier topic. It's the walking off of probably the greatest quarterback in the history of football. And the reason I want to give him so much credit is he didn't do the goodbye tour. He did not stand up and say, this is my last year. I'm going to go get these praises from every stadium I walk into. He played the season out. It didn't end the way he wanted, because they obviously wanted a Super Bowl. He took a deep breath. And I really think if they win the Super Bowl, he comes back next year to try to go for that three-peat. But since he couldn't get the three-peat, I think he's like, you know what? I've done all I need to do in this league. I'm going to go spend time with my family. And I want to touch on one thing. I know you're a believer that he is not going to go to the booth, to the ESPN, to any of that, going to hang out with the family. I agree, except for some odd reason, I think him and Gronk are going to have a podcast together.
Yeah, and that's totally different, because genuinely, I could see them doing that shit as a hobby, because podcasting is so different. Like, we can attest to that. Podcasting is so different to being in the broadcast booth, because nobody is your boss. We are our boss here. Like, I would say Jay's probably my boss more than I'm his, but I'm joking. But yeah, I mean, we do love podcasting, and I could definitely see them doing it. Now that you say that, I love that idea. Kind of a Peyton Manning, Eli Manning shit that they've got going on as well, where it's just a bit of a fucking laugh. Like Pat McAfee kind of Pat McAfee coming out of the league. It won't be the same style as Pat McAfee, because I imagine it'll just be Pat and Gronk. Like, but yeah, I could definitely see them doing that. But Tom Brady, go put your feet up on a nice beach somewhere, look at your rings and just think, yeah, I fucking own this shit. And I'm surprised that it was this season. I thought he'd go hit 45. And I think if he was in a different organization that wasn't Tampa Bay, because it's not a good fit. It's not a good fit for Tom Brady. It was fun for his first year, but I think he got a bit sick of it. And I think when Antonio Brown walked off the pitch, he was like, right, I'm done with this. Too dysfunctional. not for me. And if he was in an organization like the 49ers that make it easier for him and there's no other shit going on outside of it and all of that kind of stuff, I think that he's better off and he's probably playing into his 45th year. But I agree with you. He ended on his own terms, basically, and he ended at an MVP level, which not a lot of people get to do.
Yeah, no, shout out. And like I said, if they win this year, I think he comes back next year because nobody's ever won 3 in a row. And I think Tom really likes, like, I don't think he's a stat chaser, but I think he really respects the history of football like Peyton Manning, and they understand the honor that goes with those things. Also, nothing like giving a big FU to Belichick on your way out, because don't get me wrong, I think there's true love between him and Belichick, but I think there's a lot of, I don't want to use the word hate, but dislike and some shit they need to work out for their relationship moving forward post-football. But I definitely believe they will. I believe that the Patriots will re-embrace Tom Brady, bring him back into the fold. He will walk out on, on game day with them sometimes. He will do things for the Patriots. We will see him back in the Patriot family. And I agree with you. I think he had a lot of fun last year. I think he proved what he needed to prove, that yeah, Belichick's great, but hey, bro, so am I. That kind of thing. Because everybody's like, who's better, Belichick or Brady? I don't think that was the argument. I think that for Brady, he just wanted to prove, like, it was both of us. You know what I'm saying? Like, and Belichick getting more credit. And so I think that this was a perfect way for Tom Brady to go out. I love the way he did it on the DL. I did not, if you go watch our last video talking about it, did not believe he was retiring. So, like, I thought this was perfect.
Yeah, I thought this was a perfect way to go out. And they're not talking about the New England Patriots. I think back to that gushing letter that he writes about the Patriots. I believe he's retiring from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and he's retiring from the NFL. I think in his Hall of Fame speech, he'll be talking about Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots, I think. And also, can we not just induct guys into the into the Hall of Fame straight away? Like, I know we've got to wait a little bit. I can't remember how long the time is, but
it's 5 years. And the reason they do that is they do not want Hall of Fame players actively playing.
Yeah. That'd be so much fun, though. Like, if Tom Brady retired, got put into the Hall of Fame, and was the first Hall of Famer to ever play whilst being in the Hall of Fame. And I mean, the condition he's in, he could wait 5 years, get into the Hall of Fame, and come back and play at 50. So, and the way that the NFL's going, I mean, who's to say that he's going to get beat up at the age of 50? As long as the offensive line play improves, then there's no way quarterbacks are ever going to get touched ever again. But yeah, obviously, I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to walk away from the game, stay away from the game. Obvious Hall of Famer, first ballot, and good luck to him in whatever he does. And I just don't think that the Bill Belichick, the New England Patriots, and not mentioning them, I don't think that's actually that big a deal. As I think people in the media are trying to find a bit of a story, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think he's just saying, I'm retiring from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I've had a great time here in Tampa. And if you read his letter that he sent to the New England Patriots, I mean, he doesn't need to say any more than that. Until he gets to the Hall of Fame, until he gets to his statue unveiling, until his shirt number gets retired, and until they have anniversary nights with all of that kind of stuff. I can't believe that 12's still in play for the New England Patriots at the minute.
All right, this is just a random thought before we get out of here, because we'll talk more about this when we find out where everybody's going. I actually think this would be a good time for Jason Light to go to Bruce Arians and go, we love you, please retire, because we want Brian Leftwich as our head coach.
Yeah, I agree. It's also a fucking fantastic time for Aaron Rodgers to say, hey, that number 12 shirt needs filling. Let me come down there. That'd be so crazy. I would love to see that. It's not going to happen, but I would love to see it.
I know Gronk said he would not play with anybody but Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers might make him reconsider playing maybe one more year with another GOAT. And I know people are mad at me for calling Rodgers one of the GOATs because they're blaming him for the playoffs, but that's a whole nother story. But the more I hear coming out of the Green Bay stuff, I'm not as positive that Rodgers is leaving as used to be, but we'll leave
Yeah.
that for another video also, because we're going to be talking coaches. We're going to be talking quarterback carousels, more Brian Flores, I'm sure, in his lawsuit. We got the Super Bowl coming up, Maddie. We just got some stacked stuff, and the season's getting over.
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much, NFL, for giving us some shit to talk about in between the Super Bowl, because I doubt either of us are going to watch the Pro Bowl and really talk about that. I only like the skills game anyway. That's all I like when it comes to the Pro Bowl. So I'm not sure how much of that we'll be talking about. So thank you very much, NFL. I'm sure you'll give us loads more to talk about as we go forward.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. One world, one love. Deuces.
Cheerio.